Today I have simmer pot spells for healing, money, love and support, and manifesting better times ahead. While I'm at it, I'm going to show you several methods that you can use to add sigils to your own simmer pot spells. Coming up next. Welcome to the Witch's Studio. I am, of course, Mickie Mueller, author, illustrator, and witch, not necessarily in that order. And I'm glad to share some innovative twists on a simple spell method with you today. I'm so glad to invite you into my kitchen for more kitchen witchery. And if you're visiting for the first time, then welcome. You'll find spells, witchy tips, and tricks, plus lots of DIYs here on my channel. So if that's a kind of thing that you like, then you've found your way here for a reason. If you haven't yet, hitting that subscribe button is kind of like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs so you can find your way back to my Witch's Studio anytime you like. Also, hitting that notification bell is the best way to be among the first to catch my next video as soon as I post it. In my last video, I showed you how to upcycle an old potpourri pot into a witchy dedicated electric cauldron for casting simmer pot spells. This cauldron is covered with chalkboard paint so that I can add sigils to all of my simmer pot spells. If you haven't watched it, I'll put a link right up here. This time I wanted to bring you several different simmer pot spells step by step, but also I wanted to show you some other ways that you can include sigils in your simmer pots. These kinds of spells are really easy to do. They're perfect for beginner witches, and they're great for advanced witches who just don't have a lot of time on their hands. This is cozy kitchen witch magic of the hearth and home. Ingredients often have aromatic qualities, but they don't have to, as long as all of the ingredients that you choose are in alignment with the purpose of your spell. Also, a little caution here. Your spell ingredients are going to be simmering away on the stove as well as dissipating through the air in your home. So you are going to want to choose ingredients that are not toxic. Culinary herbs and spices, teas, fruits, and other pantry items are generally the ones that are usually chosen for simmer pots. All the ingredients have multiple magical properties. Because of this, I like to charge the ingredients with the intention, which simply means that I hold the ingredient in my hand and I tell it what I want it to do, which one of its attributes that I am waking up within that ingredient before I add it to the simmer pot. Then the ingredients are added one by one as I focus my intention. I suggest that when doing your simmer pot magic, you only do it for things that you want to have in your home because the spell is literally diffusing throughout your house. I'm also going to show you a couple of different ways to draw the sigils, which I'll be including in my spells. If you're a member of my Patreon, including the Broomstick Brigade, Witches Brew Crew, and the Witches Circle, there is a sigil wheel that I created myself and turned into a downloadable page for your Book of Shadows. If you're not already a member of my Patreon and you want to join, there's a link in the description of the video. There are also lots of sigil wheels online. They're really easy to find. So if you just do a search, one will come right up. As always, these are just a suggestion of ingredients and ways of doing things. I really want to encourage you as an individual to use your own creativity. Use substitutions and inspiration in your spells and make them your own. Okay, let's get into it. The first one I did is a healing simmer pot, and I used this sigil wheel to create a sigil. I don't know why I made it so big. You can find these sigil wheels all over the internet. I made a Book of Shadows page for this over on my Patreon where you can grab one. This is a really easy kind of sigil to make. I'm literally just tracing out the word healing on the wheel, tracing it on a piece of blank paper. And there's the sigil. It's the easiest thing ever. Now I'm going to reproduce it on my blackboard simmer pot with some chalk. And just get it as close as you can. It doesn't have to be exact to work. It's the idea of it. And because it's chalk, you can always erase it and redo it until you're happy with it. I also decided to add some intentions in the form of phrases along the sides of it. One of the things I like about this simmer pot is that I can do any kind of design on it that I want. Now I'm just adding simple tap water and a little moon water. I used a couple references to pick out my ingredients. And of course I illustrated this one. I love Deborah Blake's book for easy reference. She's got wonderful lists in here and it just makes it super easy. Most ingredients have multiple uses, so I like to charge each one and tell it what I want it to do in this instance. Of course, this will all be healing for Dan after he broke his wrist on the ice. This is a cinnamon stick. If you want to do one similar, you can also use powdered cinnamon. It doesn't have to be a cinnamon stick, but I had one on hand. I'm using almonds. They're not going to add to the scent of the simmer pot, but they will add healing energy. I'm adding allspice. Again, this is whole allspice. You can also use powdered. It doesn't have to be whole. And another ingredient that I happen to have that was fresh is rosemary. You don't have to use fresh rosemary. Dry rosemary is fine too. Now, if you don't have a chalkboard simmer pot like the one that I made, here's another way you can add a sigil. And I do this all the time. You can simply trace the sigil in the air over the top of the simmer pot, and then I like to kind of energetically press it into the water. Dan made a joke and said it was the worst tasting tea ever, and he thought the chalk was there so that he could leave a review. This next one is a money simmer pot, and since there are lots of symbols for money, we're not going to reinvent the wheel on this one. I live in America, and so I'm going to use a dollar sign. You can use any money symbol that you like. When I draw it for magic, I like to add the 2 lines instead of 1 because I feel it adds more support to the money. And then I'm going to be wanting to draw money in, so I'm just going to simply do arrows. I'm going to do 12 going around clockwise because clockwise is the direction of growth. I also decided to get a little ancient with it, and I added the alchemical symbols for silver and gold because why not? Turn it on and let's get cracking. I decided to add rainwater that I collected because I want the money to rain down on me. Yep, good symbolism. Can you just use tap water? Yes, you absolutely can. I also have a little bank water. When Dan and I were talking to an account dude up there, I don't know what his title was, but he handed me a bottle of water, so heck yeah. I put all my ingredients on this fancy plate with grapes on it and gold around the edges because I want to bring that opulent vibe, you know? If you care about aesthetics, I like to do the powdered ingredients first. Chamomile is great for money, and I just happen to have a tea bag. Salt has an old reputation of being valuable and was very valuable back in the day. If you heard them say, you're worth your salt, well, there you go. Oh my gosh, I found blood oranges. Not just an important part of your favorite serial killer's breakfast, but adds energies of inspiration, creativity, imagination, passion, and fire. In the pot you go. Because most of the money I earn comes from my creativity. Ginger heats things up and is also great for money spells. I love cooking with fresh ginger, but again, powdered is fine. Of course, these ingredients are really versatile and you can use them for multiple magical purposes. I charge these off camera because it just would take too long if I showed charging them in every single spell. I had a little mint, and again, mint tea also works, but I had fresh mint, and that is a great money drawing herb. This next one might be a little unconventional. I happen to have saffron from when I wrote my Llewellyn's Little Book of Halloween, since I used it for my soul cakes recipe. Saffron is very expensive and therefore a really good herb to use for a money spell. So I've decided to add a generous amount, and that is a generous amount of saffron because a little goes a long way. About an hour later, one of my household members received a big check. This next one is for love and support. January and February kicked our butts, so we really needed this one. I'm going to show you a different method for doing a sigil. We're just writing out love and support. Then you're going to cross off all the vowels. That's A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y for some reason. Now off to the side, I'm going to write what letters are left. And of course, you should also cross out the multiple letters. And I have 2 P's there, but I totally missed it. And then I realized we're basically going to use these letters to create a picture, which will represent the concept of love and support. I'm starting with an N, but that also gives me the shape of a V. I'm using part of the N to also create the T. I'm going to make the P off of the other side of the N. Just to add balance, I'm extending that T out a little bit. A P can always become an R by adding that little foot. And that top part of the P also looks like a D, so that works. I'm going to extend the L off of the original N that we made, and I'm going to weave that S throughout. Now I'm just going to simply redraw it in a little bit neater fashion and kind of clean up some of the lines and adjust a little bit. And there you have it. That's a pretty good sigil. Now I'm going to redraw this sigil onto a clean piece of paper, which I have burned the edges on because I love the look of it, and it reminds me of when I was a little kid, and I used to burn the edges of paper to make it look old and cool. And that kind of made me happy and kind of woke up my inner child, so why not? Also, kids, don't play with matches. I mean, it was the 1970s. We were also riding down the highway in a truck bed. So yeah, just don't play with matches. Okay, next I'm going to roll it towards me because I want to bring love and happiness towards me. And I'm going to tie it with this little cute piece of baker's twine that I happen to have on hand. Now I have a scroll that I can add to my simmer pot. And we're going to do this one on just a regular pot on the stove. This little scroll method is just another way that you can add a sigil to a simmer pot. I'm using apples, traditional for healing. Of course, we witches love to cut them crosswise so that it shows the star in the center. Slices of sweet potatoes. It's not going to add much to the scent of the simmer pot, but it will add energy of love. I had some fresh thyme on hand, so I decided to use that. Nice little bundle in the pot it goes. This lavender isn't fresh, it's dried. I've had it hanging, and I decided to add some lavender as well. One of my favorites, great for love. And I also had some dried rose petals, so I added a handful of dried rose petals for love. These were from a bouquet that was gifted to me, so extra bonus energy there. I decided to add some honey, and because I had it, rather than regular honey, I'm adding Manuka honey, which is like this super magical kind of honey, and honey is a beautiful symbol of love. So I decided to just use the fancy thing that I had on hand. As I'm stirring it, I'm doing it with intention to bring love and support to the household. And I'm kind of just pushing those little dry ingredients down. Vanilla, it's the finest of the flavors. And I love the scent of it when it's in the pot. It also adds lots of love energy. Most of the aromatic qualities of this pot comes from the apples and the vanilla, but all of the ingredients add their energy. If you want to try a simmer pot spell, but you do not have the resources to be throwing food items into a magic spell, this is the one for you. I found an extra resource for this one, the Eclectic Witch's Book of Shadows Companion, which I illustrated with more of Deborah Blake's awesome correspondences. Our sigil paper comes from the envelope that a check arrived in. I always save these kinds of things because you never know when they'll come in handy. I eliminated the vowels and the duplicate letters in the phrase "better times ahead," and then I used the sigil wheel for the rest of the letters that I had to create this sigil. Now I'm rolling it towards myself because I want to bring better times ahead into myself. And I'm tying it with a piece of string that came from some packaging that I received in the mail. This dried up orange would have ended up in the trash or in the compost. But if you cut it and that skin is super leathery, you find that you can actually get a little slice that, while you might not want to eat it, would end up fine to go in a simmer pot. Now, before you think for a minute that these cast-off ingredients would make the pot less powerful, I want you to think about something. These peels and stems and cores, they still carry the energy of the ingredient. Orange peels are the part that's used to make essential oils. Apple cores contain seeds that can literally grow an entire apple tree. All of these things could be composted and used to grow new food. So, rather than thinking about these things as cast-off energy, think of them as potential energy, growth energy. And remind ourselves as we do this kind of a spell that sometimes it's about what we do with what we have. For instance, moon water is free to make, and I decanted it into the most extravagant bottle that I had. Adding our sigil and a little pumpkin pie spice. This contains herbs that are all used for success, abundance, and love. Stems from time for courage, protection, and happiness. This used tea bag still has some power left in it for prosperity. Apple cores because healing and love can get us through hard times. The bottom of the lettuce. Are you kidding me? Lettuce brings love, protection, and prosperity. Orange peels for luck and money. A dried pomegranate peel for money and support from your ancestors. Don't forget to boop it. Boop. And a slice from that dried up blood orange for inspiration. Do you have a silver spoon? Why not use it? I'm going to grab some coffee grounds out of my French press because adding coffee to a spell speeds things up. Stir it around with that little silver spoon. And it's okay if you don't have a silver spoon. The inspiration here is to use the fancy things that you do have on hand. It helps you believe that you could get those good times again. I even picked a vessel that makes me happy to do it all in. I love this little teapot. This one scented the air beautifully. Remember, a spell doesn't have to be aesthetically perfect in order to be powerful. It's less about how it looks on social media and more about the energy you put into it. I've left simmer pots go for up to 24 hours. The key is to continually check on it and add water as needed because some of that water will evaporate. I hope you enjoyed these spells. I already know what you're going to ask. How do you dispose of the ingredients once you're done? You have to carry the entire simmer pot to a graveyard at 9:45 p.m. on a Tuesday when the moon is waning. I'm just messing with you. Simply state the spell is finished. Thank the ingredients, and yeah, I'm not kidding, literally Marie Kondo style. Then just strain it to separate the liquid from the botanicals. You can absolutely just pour the liquid down the drain if you want to. Depending on the intention, I sometimes like to pour it out in my garden or in my yard. As far as the botanicals go, you can throw them in your trash can if you want. But again, depending on your intention, it's perfectly acceptable to put it in your compost and use it to nurture your garden. I mean, that's just adding more energy to the working. I hope these ideas inspire you to do something similar. The best kind of spells to use simmer pots are for positive spells for yourself and anyone living in your home. It fills your home with its energy. Please feel free to share this video with your witch friends. People love when you share new information with them. And although simmer pots aren't new, there might be some new ways of looking at simmer pots in this video that you hadn't thought of before. In fact, if you learned something new today, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel and helps other people in the community to be able to find this information. Thanks again for visiting me here, and thanks a million to all you viewers, subscribers, and my awesome Patreon members for supporting my channel and the other work that I do. Whether it's making video content, writing articles and books, or doing illustration work, creating art over on Etsy, it's people just like you that make it possible for me to do the work that I do. And for that, I am very grateful. I'll see you next time. Until then, I hope that you stay safe, happy, and healthy. And remember, as always, to be your magic. Bye, everybody. I've let simmer pot go.